योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्.
Hello friends, I am Professor Srenik Shah. Today in this session I will discuss the disposition of variances, accounting of variances, interpretation of variances, reporting of variances and control ratios. Let us start first with the disposition of variances. When standard costs are entered in the books of accounts, that is journals and ledger, adjustments and disposition of variances are required at the end of the accounting period. There is no uniformity of opinion regarding disposition of variances. Hence, there is no hard and fast rule in this regard. Methods of disposition of variances. Three methods of disposition of variances. Number 1, transfer to profit and loss account. Number 2, allocation of variances in inventories and cost of sales. Number 3, combination method. Let us start with the first method, transfer to profit and loss account. In this method, all variances are transferred to profit and loss account at the end of the accounting period. Hence, the finished stock, work in progress and cost of sales are maintained at standard cost. This method assumes that standard cost are the real cost and all variances represents inefficiency, waste and below standard performance. Valuation of inventories is uniform and prompt in this method. Variances are shown separately in the profit and loss account. This attracts the attention of the management and reflects on profits or loss. Second method, allocation of variances in inventories and cost of sales. In this method, variances are distributed over finished stock, work in progress and cost of sales. This helps to show inventories and cost of sales at actual cost. This method assumes that standard costs are not the real cost, but are the tools of control only. Hence, here actual cost should be shown in the financial statements. Number third method, combination method. Methods 1 and 2 are easy to apply, but disposition of variances is not according to the best accounting practice. The best way is to combine the methods 1 and 2 by analyzing the variances according to the causes and disposing them in accordance with the underlying reasons for their existence. Those variances which arise from controllable factors, as for example, variance due to idle time etc., and represents responsibilities of supervisory staff should be transferred to profit and loss account. Those variances which arise from wrong standards or uncontrollable causes, as for example, variances due to change in material prices in the market etc., should be allocated to inventories and cost of goods sold on some suitable basis. Now, let us move to accounting of variances. We have three methods of accounting variances in the cost accounts. Number 1, single plan method. Number 2, partial plan method. Number 3, dual plan method. Let us start with the single plan method first. Under this method, the entries in work in progress account are made at standard cost. The other features of this method are: number 1, material price variance is separated and recorded when material is purchased. The purchase of material is recorded at standard price in the material ledger control account. The adverse material price variance account is credited to general ledger adjustment account and debited to material price variance account. The material usage variance account is likewise charged to stores ledger control account. The adverse variance is debited to material usage variance account and material ledger control account is credited, and reverse entry is made if the usage variance is favorable. Number 2, in case of direct wages, the actual wages paid is debited to wages control account and credited to general ledger adjustment account. when the wage cost is debited to work in progress account, the amount debited is the standard labor cost and the variances are recorded in wages control account. Thus, the variances are not recorded in work in progress account. Number 3, when the overheads are actually paid, the actual amount is debited to overhead control account and general ledger adjustment account is credited. When the factory overheads are charged to work in progress account, it is debited at standard cost only. Variances are recorded in respect to overheads account and not in work in progress account. Number 4, as work in progress account is prepared at standard cost, so when the cost of finished goods is transferred from work in progress to finished stock account, it is transferred at standard cost. Number 5, finished stock ledger control account is also prepared at standard cost. Number 6, when the cost of finished goods is transferred to cost of sales, it is also at standard cost. Number 7, at the end of the year, all variances accounts are closed and are transferred to costing profit and loss account. Now we come to the second method, partial plan method. Under this method, the work in progress account is partly recorded with actual cost, that is only on debit side, and partly with standard cost only credit side, hence it is called partial plan method. Thus, work in progress account is not prepared only with the standard cost or actual cost. The other features are as under. Number 1, when materials are purchased, the material ledger control account, that is stores ledger control account, is debited with actual purchase price and general ledger adjustment account is credited. When materials are issued to production, it is debited to work in progress account at actual price only. Variances are separated in work in progress account. Number 2, when direct wages are paid, the wages control account is debited with actual amount paid and general ledger adjustment account is credited. When wages are debited to work in progress account, it is also debited with actual wages paid and wages control account is credited. The wage cost variance are separated in work in progress account. Number 3, the entry for overheads is also made in the same way as that of wages and overhead variances are separated in the work in progress account. Number 4, the materials, direct wages and factory overheads are debited to work in progress account at actual cost, but when the cost of finished goods is transferred from work in progress account to finished goods control account, it is transferred at standard cost. The closing stock of work in progress account is shown at standard cost. Number 5, all variances relating to cost are transferred from work in progress account to respective variance accounts. Adverse variances are credited to work in progress account and debited to respective variance accounts. Number 6, the finished stock ledger account is prepared with standard cost only. When actual goods are sold, it is transferred to cost of sales account at standard cost. The closing finished goods stock is at standard cost only. Number 7, all variances accounts are closed at the end of the year and are transferred to costing profit and loss account. Now we move to the third method, that is dual plan method. The variances under this method are not incorporated in accounts, but are ascertained statistically and are shown in a separate amount column in various accounts. They are better as percentages. The main features of this system are as follows. The standards used in this method are basic standards which are not changed for a long period of time, while under both the above methods the standards used are current standards. Number 2, there are 3 columns for amounts in material ledger control account, work in progress account and general ledger adjustment account. One column for recording actual cost, second column for standard cost and the third column are used to record the relative variances, which is the absolute figure showing percentage or ratios of actual cost to standard cost. Number 3, except these 3, other accounts are prepared at actual cost only and there is no need to keep 3 columns. The advantages of this method are: number 1, as the variances are calculated not in terms of rupees but in terms of percentages, it helps the management to know the proportion of variability of various cost from standards. Number 2, basic standards are used here for quite a long period of time. Hence, it is possible to know the trends of cost of various elements as well as the trends of profits and loss and their causes. Number 3, stock is valued at standard price, and so there will be no difference in its value to be used in financial statements. Number 4, the trend and historical picture will help in future planning. The limitations of this method are: number 1, it is not simple to understand or operate. Number 2, its operation is costly and it involves more clerical work. Interpretation of variances. Variance analysis highlights areas of strengths and weaknesses, but does not suggest the action to be taken. A manager must interpret the significance of variances correctly before initiating control action. All planning is based on estimates, as for example prices, cost, volumes, etc. Hence, actual outcomes are bound to vary. In standard costing, variances are to be reported to management for remedial action. Before taking action, the management will investigate the causes of variances. Variances may occur due to human or mechanical failure to achieve a target, errors in specifying the parameters values in decision model, errors in measuring the actual outcome, and erroneous formulation in a decision model, chance fluctuations of a parameter for which no cause can be assigned. The reasons for cost variances are efficiencies and inefficiencies of operations, errors in setting standards, changes in exchange rates, etc. Some of the possible causes of cost variances. For adverse material price variance: number 1, change in material; 2, price rise; or number 3, careless purchasing. For favorable material price variances: number 1, change in material standard; number 2, unexpected discount received; or number 3, purchasing with more care. For adverse material usage variance: number 1, substandard material; number 2, pilferage; number 3, excessive waste; number 4, rigid quality control; or number 5, wrong allocation of materials to jobs. For favorable material usage variance: number 1, using material or higher quality than standard; number 2, wrong allocation of materials to jobs; or number 3, better utilization of material. For adverse labor efficiency variance: number 1, lost time exceeding standard allowed; number 2, lesser output than standard; number 3, set due to lack of training, substandard material, etc. or number 4, wrong allocation of time to jobs. For favorable labor efficiency variance: number 1, actual output exceeding standard output set for the same number of hours due to superior quality of equipment or materials, work motivation, etc. For adverse labor rate variance: number 1, only due to increase in rate of pay. For favorable labor rate variance: number 1, only due to using apprentice or workmen at a rate of pay lesser than standard. For labor idle time variance: number 1, sickness or accident to worker, breakdown of machine, or non availability of tools, materials, instructions of foreman, drawing, etc. For adverse overhead volume variance: number 1, shortage of plant capacity, and number 2, too much idle time. For favorable overhead volume variance: only due to excess of actual time worked over budget. For adverse overheads expenditure variance: only due to increase in cost of services used. For favorable overheads expenditure variance: number 1, use of services more economically, and number 2, savings in cost incurred. For adverse as well as favorable overheads efficiency variance: the same reasons as for the labor efficiency variance have caused overheads recovery to differ from standard. Now, we switch to reporting of variances. Variance reports showing variances from standards for each element of cost of each department and operations should be quickly prepared and forwarded to management for proper investigation and appropriate action. This will prevent recurrence of adverse variances. At the time of preparing the report, the following points should be remembered. Number 1, the report should be simple, clear and prompt, otherwise it will not fully serve its purpose. Number 2, the reports must show a comparison of actual results achieved with those planned. Number 3, as per the principle of exception rule, the significant variances should be highlighted. Number 4, the report should reveal the results of the period under consideration and assess the level of efficiency achieved. Number 5, variances arising due to each factor should be separately shown. Moreover, uncontrollable variances must be separated from controllable variances for proper action. Number 6, the contents of the report should vary according to the person for whom it is intended. As for example, reports for top management should be brief, whereas for departmental heads it will be more elaborate. Number 7, wherever possible, graphs and charts should be used in the variance reports. Now, we come to the control ratios. Besides variances, certain ratios are used by management to control operations. If a ratio is 100% or above, it shows a favorable position, but if the ratio is below 100%, it shows unfavorable position. For evaluation of performance, following 4 important ratios are used. Efficiency ratio, it is defined as standard hours equivalent of work produced expressed as a percentage of the actual hours spent in producing the work. It shows whether actual time taken in production differs from time allowed by the standard. The equation to calculate the efficiency ratio is as under. Standard hours required for actual production upon actual hours worked into 100. Now, we come to the second ratio, activity ratio. It is defined as the number of standard hours equivalent to work produced expressed as percentage of budgeted standard hours. It shows the extent to which manufacturing facilities have been used compared to that specified in budgets. The equation to calculate the activity ratio is standard hours for actual production upon standard hours for budgeted production into 100. Now, we come to the third ratio, capacity ratio. This ratio shows the extent to which production facilities were actually used during the budget period or hours. The equation to calculate the capacity ratio is actual hours worked upon budgeted hours into 100. The fourth ratio, calendar ratio. Sometimes besides the ratios mentioned above, calendar ratio is also calculated. It shows the number of actual working days availed during the budget period. The equation for calculating calendar ratio is actual working days in the budget period upon working days in the budget period into 100. Friends, let me now summarize what we studied in this session. In this module, we have studied the disposition of variances, reporting of variances, its accounting methods, interpretations of variances and control ratios. Thank you.